we got today the situation with Diablo. Now, I think this picture goes and shows a lot. This is how we started, and this is where we're at. I think that they need to stop taking it so seriously. It's just a game. Like, you know what they should have done? They should have done this. They should have done this exact thing. And like, I guarantee you, if they had done that, everybody would be laughing about it, and people would have forgotten about the problem. It's like whenever a magician is like doing this with his hand and he puts the card behind his back and nobody sees it because he's doing this with his hand. Like, they really got to think this shit through.
Hello, Diablo community. Welcome to another Diablo 4 Campfire Chat. My name is Adam Fletcher. I am the Associate Director of Community here for Diablo. I'm joined here by Joe Shelley, Game Director of Diablo.
Jesus. Oh, fuck.
4, and Mr. Joe Pipora, the Associate Game Director for Diablo 4. We have a lot to talk about today. Obviously, we have this Campfire Chat because we do want to talk about...
See, like, I would respect if, like, one of these guys was just like, yeah, so we're having the chat. I mean, it seems like, according to the internet, we really fucked up, guys. So we want to talk about that today.
The patch that just released this past week, which is patch 1.10. We've seen a ton of feedback. We've heard a lot of feedback. And so we do want to go through, you know, a lot of the points of feedback that we've been hearing, and at the same time, the patch itself. The biggest thing that, you know, to kind of like kick us off here, I think we want to, you know, obviously acknowledge everyone's feedback in regards to reducing player power. We know it is bad. We know it is not fun. And
well, if you knew it was bad, it wasn't fun, why you do it? Then why did you do it?
Something that, you know, we ourselves know that it's not the greatest play experience for players out there. We do want to explain why we ended up doing it within the actual patch.
All right.
And then, of course, we also want to talk about like what we were trying to achieve specifically with this patch and with the changes that players ended up seeing. And then separately, we do want to also talk about how we don't plan on doing a patch like this ever again. We have most definitely heard the feedback from the players on that front, and we do want to talk.
There's not gonna be another one of these at all for season 1. There's not gonna be another one of these patches. It's never gonna happen in season 1.
A little bit about, you know, our philosophy, our own internal statements that we're setting for ourselves for future updates for the game itself. And then, of course, we do want to also talk about how we can talk better and communicate with the community better.
I think Blizzard has a massive communication issue. Number one, if they had just come on and just been a little bit more human about it and been like, guys, it seems like we fucked up, and today we want to talk about it. You're not happy. Nobody's happy. Man, that's not good. And if they just started it out with that, I'm like, okay, thank God. They pretty much just did. Yeah, but they talk about it in like a way that's like PR. Like, you've got to remember, like, you're not talking to a board meeting. You're talking to a bunch of guys that are playing Diablo 4. The people that are watching this live aren't wearing pants. Like, just fucking act normal. Number one. It really, I mean, and that's the bottom line, isn't it? That's the bottom line. Also, let's talk about the patch itself. They never really posted a lot of, like, reasoning for why these things changed, or, like, logic for it. Like, for example, like, let's contrast this with Path of Exile. Path of Exile, Chris Wilson, who's the lead guy for Path of Exile, not only does he do a podcast or, like, an interview directly, he usually does it with, like, Ziggy D after the, after the announcements, but on top of that, then if people don't like the changes, Bro, this dude will sit there and fucking write an essay on Reddit about why he's right about the changes. He will get down in the trenches himself and fight for these fucking nerfs. And so he will explain that he's right. And he's going to be like, oh, well, you know, like, well, he fucked up. Remember with the loot with, which league was that? Lake of Calandra, where nobody was getting any loot? Well, he's like, oh, you know, well, we fucked up. It's like, okay, all right, we get it. And people were pissed. And finally, they dialed it back. So, yeah, here's my reason. Yes, and the thing is that I remember I defended them. It was in, like, Expedition League. I said that the game needed to be nerfed, right? I wasn't too much of a fan of the next set of them. But the first set, I was like, yeah, true. And, like, it's just about explaining their intent. And also, like, the problem is that in my opinion, I think they should have added the seasonal. This is like a communication opinion of mine. Is that I think they should have added the heart affixes, the malignant heart affixes, in the same page as the nerfs, because people were just gonna read the nerfs and be like, "Oh wow, we're nerfed. This class is terrible. It's over now," but they didn't do that. Because they showed them in two different places. So, like, people see the nerfs and they never look at the fucking hearts because they say, fuck it, I'm not going to play the season anyway. Again, just, this is my opinion.
Regards to patches and updates coming to the game and what we can do to improve on that. So I know that the first thing we do want to talk about, though, as I said, was talking about, you know, why we ended up doing this in this patch. And I do want to throw it over to Mr. Joe Pipor over here to talk a little bit more.
Why'd you do it?
Sure.
Why did you kill
I know that we've
game?
talked on stream before about our intentions for Diablo 4 being a game about choice, and part of that is ensuring that the various class options feel like they've got a place in the meta experience, and that kind of goes to some of the changes we made in 1.1. Now, Adam already called out that we've heard the feedback with regard to the patch. And we know that reducing player power is never a good experience in general. And I want to talk through, like, sort of some of the things that brought us to where we are today in terms of decisions we were making and why. So a few of the really big changes that were made as part of 1.1. First, really, I guess, to cooldown reduction. We changed the amount of CDR that players can get as part of in the affix ranges and items that are
This is the worst change they did, by the way. This CDR, because I like hitting my buttons. Like, that's why I like CDRs, because I can hit my buttons. That's it. It's that simple.
For them as they're going through the experience. CDR is one of the, if not the most powerful stat in many ways in Diablo 4. And the reason for it is obvious. When you're able to get
is CDR the most powerful stat? I mean, I would say that vulnerability is, but okay. They nerf vulnerability too, to be fair.
Get CDR to a certain point, when using certain class mechanisms, you're able to get effectively like instantaneous like active skills. Okay. So, like, you know, that can give you like unlimited resource, it can give you unlimited movement speed, give you unlimited damage resist. Yeah. And it begins to dwarf the effectiveness of other options when you can start trying to take these things into account. Now, we know that blasting through content with those things is really fun. So it feels.
So then, okay. Okay, so all right. Well then, that pretty much settles it then, right? Okay. Great. Well, we're going to keep it in the game then, because it's fun.
It's really, really painful to have to take some of those things away. And we certainly don't relish the idea. That was the original thinking for these sorts of bits. One of the reasons why we think that these builds are very prevalent at the moment is based upon like the nature of some of the end-game content we have.
I want to address this because this is a popular comment. And obviously, it's a chatter is going to get embarrassed. So let's go ahead. Let's talk about it. You know they are a public traded company. So to compare an indie company makes no sense. Anything they say on these campfire sessions can shift the stock prices if they say anything wrong. Okay. Did you know that Smilegate is also a private company? the same as Grinding Gear Games, because Grinding Gear Games is same thing. And it has botting issues, etc. There's pay to win, everything. And that doesn't stop Gold River from going on a live stream and literally reading "this system sucks dick" out loud, basically. Not in those words, but something similar to that. I don't speak Korean, so I'm just listening to how it was translated. So what I'm saying is that, of course, anything like this is going to affect the stock prices. But to say that they can make decisions because they're a publicly traded company, Lost Ark fucked up a bunch of times. And they did the same thing.
Diablo 4. In particular, thinking about Nightmare Dungeons, especially.
Mm-hmm.
The reality is that Nightmare Dungeons are dramatically overtuned from where they actually need to be, based upon the place they fill, the role they fill in the game itself.
Mm-hmm.
So, tier 100 Nightmare Dungeons are excruciatingly difficult for most players to, most classes to be able to actually get through. And as a result, it begins to kind of winnow the opportunities and options that players have when they begin to engage with content.
Fucking Dylan's here. Give me a minute.
Do you use Bluetooth?
Do I use Bluetooth?
Yeah.
No. It's like a whole like audio thing and everything like that. That.
Got them spicy
over there.
peppers.
Shit. I'm fine. I'm fine. Okay. All right. You've been playing Diablo 4?
No, I have not.
Did you buy it?
No, I did not.
Why didn't you buy it?
Okay. Oh god. I mean, okay. So I was joking earlier whenever I was like, "You're gonna put me to sleep with Diablo 4."
Mm-hmm.
I've been following it and shit, but it's just not like, truthfully, it's not even the type of game I like to play.
Yeah.
Like I played PoE for a bit, but
How far did you get in PoE?
not far. I probably played it for
right.
like 20 minutes.
Yeah, that's about right. Enough to open up the skill tree?
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah.
That it? Yeah, okay.
Yeah, and it's also been a few years, so.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know what the fuck they're doing, man. Like, they're just basically nerfed everything.
Yeah, I heard about that, and I was thinking, like, in terms of, like, game dev, because I like tinker in game dev, too, it's like,
Yeah.
I just don't understand why they continue to nerf things whenever what they should do is they should just bring everything up to, like, a crazy broken level so it's fun for everybody.
So,
Just my opinion.
really funny thing about that is they literally did that in Diablo 3. So this is what you get whenever you only buff things.
Mm-hmm.
You ready?
I'm ready. Yeah, I don't see the problem. That looks fucking awesome.
Boom.
That looks so much fun. 422.713 T.
That's 422,000 trillions.
Yeah, that's pretty good.
Yeah, and so that's kind of like, that's what happens whenever you only buff everything. And I really, I'm worried about that. I get it, and it's like, I don't want to see everything get buffed up like that, but it would be okay if people could just play the game a little bit more. I don't get it, man.
The numbers are really,
understand.
I think maybe the numbers are less what I was talking about, and more about, like, stuff like being able to push your buttons faster or just like do wild builds
because
that,
it's
like, make
fucking
it more
badass.
fun.
That's the thing.
Exactly.
Is like there's literally, that is where the conversation should end. Is it badass? Yeah. Okay. Well then there it is. Let's do it. It's just that simple.
There we go.
Anyway, we will get back to the actual to the interview. I'll go back like 20 seconds, and that way we can get caught up with everything. Okay, here we go.
That's typically overtuned from where they actually need to be, based upon the place they fill, the role they fill in the game itself. So, tier 100 Nightmare Dungeons are excruciatingly difficult for most players to, most classes to be able to actually get through. And as a result, it begins.
Well, I just wish they were difficult in a way that wasn't numerical. I wish that the NPCs had different types of mechanics and attacks, rather than them just having two. I feel like the difficulty of like Lost Ark raids is way more interesting than something like the difficulty of Nightmare 100 dungeons, or like a good comparison is also like Palace of the Dead, like 180 plus. It's like the mobs are just like ridiculously fucking hard, but they're not really complicated. They just do so much damage that if they hit you more than one time, you're dead.
Begins to kind of winnow the opportunities and options that players have when they begin to engage with content at that tier. such that you really do require, you need to lean on very, very specific builds, very specific setups, with access to things like near instantaneous cooldowns for some skills, in an effort to actually like make it through those spaces. And that was never. So really
I wonder like what the logic is though.
Content.
Like, so if they're saying that, if they're saying that like you need to have these things to be able to beat the Nightmare 100 dungeons, and then they're nerfing those things, well, like what the fuck? Like then how are you supposed to be able to do it?
And we see that, right? Players are using Nightmare Dungeons as ways to kind of like level up their glyphs, ways for them to gain experience and loot as they're progressing up. It's largely like a level up system that you're progressing with once you get into world tiers 3 and 4. But they've taken on an outsized role as sort of this new end-game chase opportunity for players who are looking to really challenge themselves.
Exactly,
and we love that we want that kind of content and we want that experience for those players.
Good.
And we feel like we have done a reasonably good job of that with Uber Lilith in the game. But we don't feel that like tier 100 Nightmare Dungeons fulfill the same role at all. Just the nature of the content type doesn't actually work well as that kind of pushing opportunity. So one thing we actually plan on doing, and we'd hope to get out as part of this release, we're going to get out very, very soon, is we're making a reduction in the difficulty of some aspects of Nightmare Dungeons to kind of retune some things. And the goal here is to say that we think that that's roughly where you are with like a Nightmare Dungeon tier 70. That's kind of where we actually want the difficulty to be for a tier 100 as players are going through the experience. So there's still a thing to push for, but it's more reasonable.
That's okay. So the tier 100s are now going to be tier 70. All right, that's fine.
And as part of this exchange, we know that players really like kind of blasting and pushing hard for these sorts of things. They feel like big achievements. Mm-hmm. We are going to be looking at creating a new content type, a new endgame content type. It's going to be more directly meant to address those sorts of players and give people more things to chase.
I just hope that they don't add something. Thank you, Tiny Violin, for the raid, by the way. Thank you. I just hope they don't add an unlimited scaling mechanism. I really, really don't want to see that. Please do not add some infinitely scaling ladder that you can never get to the top of. I like the fact that in a Nightmare 100 dungeon, you can beat it and it's over. What day is Judgment Day this week? Judgment Day is every day.
As part of the commitment to the live services, to make sure that we're always adding new things like this for players to go and try to kind of chase after, to kind of maximize and use their builds in fun and interesting ways. So that's another really big thing. Mm-hmm. Next, we made a number of changes to the to sorceress skill, sorceress builds in general. That sort of ended up having a net impact of like really reducing their effectiveness with some of their most powerful builds at the moment. And the goal at the time was to try to bring their builds back in line with one another so that we could start trying to bring everything up at once, as opposed to having these things as they are. Okay. And this actually leads to a really good conversation about the idea of balance in general. I said before that Diablo 4 is a game that is about choice, and that remains our goal. That's our guiding light. We're trying to make decisions on balance and design in general. Yeah. And sometimes we don't always get it quite right. Yeah. And I think that we see that with some builds that are just simply not performing to the level they need to be because they just don't have the right interactions with the kind of content or skills that you actually really want to use to get through the game.
Yeah, true.
This is an example of like when we're thinking about our goals in terms of creating this balanced experience where there's lots of interesting choices for players to engage with. We cannot make balanced decisions without kind of accounting for the way that players are going to feel about those things who are playing those classes. Like if our goal is to create an ultimately balanced experience, without regard for how much fun the players having as part of that exchange, that's ultimately that would be like a failure on our part to not kind of think about things. So
honestly, like what he's saying, like he's cooking, man. I agree with pretty much everything he said with this. Like, yeah, true.
We have plans that I know that we're going to talk about a little bit later to kind of address this more clearly. But understand that we've heard this, and we have plans in the very near future to address these sorts of things. Another bit that speaks to this is the change that was made for vulnerable damage. Now, I think that there are a lot of players in the community who've like kind of dove deep into a lot of our systems in Diablo 4 and kind of see that vulnerable damage is a really outsized role that it plays in terms of a lot of build making.
Right.
And to the point where
it's
it feels,
OP.
You'll get to certain parts of content, and creatures sort of need to be vulnerable in order for you to feel that you need to that you can damage them. This is something that we're very aware of, and we made a reduction as part of the 1.1 build that reduced player damage in general, because most players rely on many builds, I should say, rely on vulnerable damage to deal to kind of spike in lots of different kinds of content.
He's totally right, and I think vulnerable was way too big of a factor.
This is something we also need to talk about. Vulnerable damage is far more potent right now than we actually want it to be in general across the game. I think I've talked about this before.
It's the end all and be all. That's always bad.
And we need to make a number of we need to kind of bring these things back in line. But this is a more complicated conversation than simply just saying we can take a bonus damage to vulnerable creatures number and reduce it by 40% in terms of the amount of damage you can accrue across different sources, and have that be the way that we solve this problem. Really, I think we all know that the ultimate problem with damage to vulnerable creatures, the fact is multiplicative stacking on top of the base vulnerable damage, which is already multiplicative on its own. Like this is the reason why the stat plays such an outsized role in a lot of player builds.
Yep.
We're going to need to move that to an additive place.
Right here.
But we can't do that without making a number of other adjustments to critical strike damage, to the way that overpowered damage is both calculated and dealt to creatures, and the availability of these things across various builds. There's lots of builds that rely on vulnerable, and they're balanced around the idea that the damage is also multiplicative. So a number of their balance and tuning changes will need to be made in order to be able to bring vulnerable back in line with some of the other options we have out there. So this is how we're kind of thinking about these things moving forward. We want to start trying to be a little more inclusive of all of these decisions when we begin considering which of these balance adjustments we want to make, rather than being in this iterative place where we're making small adjustments to a number of different things along the way with an end goal in mind of where we actually eventually want to be. We want to be trying to consider what the experience is going to be like from moment to moment, rather from update to update and release to release, to get things in a better spot. So while we do believe that having our season roll gives us the opportunity to kind of reset our meta and change a lot of things, that obviously has an impact on eternal players, the way that they kind of perceive the characters they're still playing in that space, and it can be disruptive for players who found a particular playstyle that they're really excited about. So
I also think that if they had done this change after season 1 came out, they had made basically the Eternal Realms kept the old stats until after the season came out, and then the season released with the old stats, with the new stats, I don't think people would have reacted as negatively, because they wouldn't be able to one-to-one compare it. Because everybody, what I think everybody did whenever the patch came out is they logged on to their character and they saw, wow, my character is really bad now. I don't like my character anymore. So it's because if you start at level 1, you don't have the same frame of reference than if you're starting with your level 95 or level 100 or level 73 character, and then now it does half as much damage.
So I know that, Joe, you're going to talk about some of these things in a minute, so this is an awkward handoff.
It's a matter of perspective
but
again.
I just want to make it right. It's a very awkward handoff. Okay. I'm sorry. But I want people to understand that we do hear the things that they're saying. We do plan on making changes in the near future, and just kind of thinking philosophically about how we want to address these things moving forward. And with that, I guess, Joe, would you like to?
I think everything he said was pretty much accurate. I really think so. I don't like this idea that in the near future, in the future, we're planning on, we're listening to. They need to be more y'all took Uber Uniques out of the game in 30 minutes. Don't tell me you can't make changes to the game quickly. Come on. It's nuts. Hotfix changed the game immediately. And I know they're doing that with Nightmare Dungeons and a few other things, which is great. But I don't like this idea that we have to wait for some, point in the future for the game to be fun. They are? Well, they are and they're not. They're making some changes quickly and some changes not so quickly.
What about your thinking?
Yeah, so I think it's a great point, a great lead in here. we want, as Adam mentioned, we want to talk about. We kind of talked a little bit about how we got here. We want to talk about what we're going to do about that. I mean, I think one of the really good points you made is like, you know, vulnerable is, for example, vulnerable is like a must-take stat, right? And it would be better if it wasn't a.
Well, how'd y'all not know that? Well, how do you not know that? I don't get it. Cause like people figured this out in like a few days.
Must take stat.
But more of a build option.
The game will be better when that's the case. But if along the way to getting to that, the game is less fun, then we're not fulfilling our obligation to players.
He's right.
So I want to talk about our mission statement for the live game.
Okay, we're gonna skip ahead. So let's go ahead and look at some of the clips here.
Constitute a nerf as a result. That is the thing that we're thinking about as well.
We are not trying to slow down the game.
No, and to that point, like we have a vision for how long we want the.
I'm gonna watch Rax and DM's recap, but I first want to watch this just so I can hear exactly what they say. So I have I know what was said word for word.
Game take for players. We realize that it's taking a little bit longer than that, than what our vision was originally for a lot of folks that are leveling up, particularly when they get to certain parts of the game, like when they're World Tiers 3 and 4.
Yeah.
So we are looking to like really to readjust the XP rates for those areas, because we aren't looking to like have you hit this absolute brick wall.
I just don't see like how do you say that, but like the numbers, like, because you look at the numbers. Like, if you take something from, like, 5 to 3, and then you're like, well, we're not trying to lower it. Well, then why'd it go to 3? Like, how does that happen? Because they're increasing density? Well, why not just do that now? Like... So I don't understand, like, so what's the logic? So we're going to nerf the game now and we're going to make it better at some point in the future? So, like, what? They did? Is it in the game right now? Is it in the game right now? No. Okay, so then they shouldn't have done the nerfs. They only increased in Nightmare Dungeons and Helltide 2. Next week, it's going to be next week. Like, guys, I really, like... Please understand. Like, I want to... Oh, this is from the last one. I want to... Like, I do want to support Blizzard, and I'm glad they're doing this. But stop making fucking excuses for this shit. Fucking stop it. Like, come on, man. Are you fucking kidding me? It's gonna take a week to change this, but we nerfed it now. What if players... Here, let's theoretically think about this. What if players didn't get extremely fucking upset? Would they have done this live stream? Abso-fucking-lutely not. And again, this is a tinfoil hat theory. I could be totally fucking delusional and completely fucking wrong. But I'll tell you this. I don't think it's a coincidence that this patch comes out, everybody's saying they're not going to play the season, and then within like 2 hours, they immediately come out saying that they're going to do a chat and talk about everything. Come on, just use you activate your common sense indicator and go from there. Like, they didn't test the game to see the power levels. Yes, exactly. Like, they didn't test it. Like, if people were not upset about it, like, we wouldn't be getting this density increase. Patch 1.1 is 2 days after next Friday. Hotfix for Nightmare Dungeons is tonight. Yeah. I mean, I guess, look. It's better than nothing. It is. But better than nothing isn't good. It's just a game, bro? Yeah. I'm not, like, the thing is that... Look, obviously there's a lot of there's a lot of like dramatization that I'll do on stream, right, to make things more entertaining or whatever. But this is my honest opinion, okay? Like, no bullshit. I think it's dumb that they put nerfs out and then they put the buffs out at some point in the future. I think it's fucking stupid. I don't want to have to play a bad game for an arbitrary period of time until they can get their head out of their ass and make it good. Like, I think this is stupid, and it makes me not want to play the game. Like, that's it. Like, I'm not emotionally attached to this. Like, I'll go play, like, Remnant just came out. Like, I played New World again, play WoW. The new WoW season's out. I haven't really played that a lot. Like, I'm not, like, upset about this. I mean, I am in a way, right? But this isn't emotionally affecting me. I'm just, like, I just think it's dumb. That's really the way that I feel about it. Yeah, it's just disappointing, and yeah, it's okay. They just should do better.
Kennywa says, question, why did you guys increase the cast time on stuff like leaving dungeons?
Oh boy. Oh boy. Oh boy. I'm ready.
Says, question, why did you guys increase the cast time on stuff like leaving dungeons? Feels like you're trying to slow down the game by making us waste time for something that might feel useless.
We can look at that. We'll continue to evaluate that change. It's a fairly small difference. I know that.
Why did you do it?
In an ARPG, small amounts of time can be meaningful. We did add the reset dungeon button back in. It does require that you're outside the dungeon, and so there's kind of a loop there.
How do I watch the rest of it?
Kennywa says, question, why did you guys increase the cast time on stuff like leaving dungeons? Feels like you're trying to slow down the game by making us waste time for something that might feel useless.
We can look at that. We'll continue to evaluate that change. It's a fairly small difference. I know that in an ARPG, small amounts of time can be meaningful. We did add the reset dungeon button back in. It does require that you're outside the dungeon, and so.
But why did you increase the timer?
There's kind of a loop there.
Loki5123 asks, are you going to add more than 6 or 7 items a season?
That's it?
Are there plans to add more? The feeling is they feel like they would want more items per season that are actually added in.
Yeah, we've always said that we want...
You know, if the developers had any fucking balls, they would say, listen, we changed it from 3 to 5 because we're going to sell you guys portal cosmetics, and the animation for the portal cosmetics takes 5 seconds and not 3, so we had to make the timer longer so people would buy them. And if they said that, I'd be like, okay. Okay. And I would just be like, all right, whatever. Fucking stupid, but okay. And I wouldn't really give a shit. But what is this?
Take in the feedback from the players as we kind of got these seasons out the door. So season 1, we add the 32 Malignant Hearts, which I think have been pretty cool. We're going to be looking at the balance, some of them to kind of like lift them up, make them a little more exciting in some places. But broadly, we're pretty happy. They generally are. And then we have our uniques and our legendary items that we add with the season as well. I think if we see that there's like a lot of interest in trying to get more of these, we can start trying to think about how we can inject a few more legendaries into the game with each season, or a couple more uniques potentially into the game with each season. But we want to continue to see like kind of what the feedback looks like. This is a good example of people asking for more. So yeah, good to know.
Separately from that, like, are you guys looking at potentially like reworking or redoing some things?
So that means patch 1.1.1 is kind of in that vein of trying to like get these things into a slightly better place. And we do want to go back over our existing legendary power library and identify the ones where they can afford to be lifted up with redesigns and changing the way that some parts of them work, so they've better fulfilled the stated purpose in terms of where they're supposed to sit in builds. So there's going to be a lot of opportunities for that along the way as well. It's not going to be the only way we inject like new fun in the game isn't going to just be through the season mechanic, isn't just going to be through the addition of brand new legendaries uniques, but also going back over the existing legendary powers after we see players use them a little bit more, making adjustments accordingly.
Okay.
Question from Panda Mousy and Mormra. Same question, actually. What's your plan for resistances? Right now, they feel like a wasted stat. Do we have any changes to resistances that might be changing maybe sooner or later, or how's that going to work?
Resistances fall in one of those categories where if we need to make a change to the way that resistance damage is, or rather, the way that players use resistance to mitigate damage from certain sources. And it's going to be a far-reaching change when we actually go through and make this, which means that we want to be able to take the time with it and do it properly. It's going to be, right now we plan to put that into Season 2 as part of a larger rework. So you can look forward to more information as we get a little bit closer to Season 2.
Shadow.
Well, then why? Because in Season 2 we're going to have the Malignant Hearts, because like I think that they probably should add some stuff from Season 2. Like I like, for example, like the autoplay Necromancer Malignant Heart. I'm gonna be honest, like if they ever take that out of the game, I'm quitting. Like I've seen how good it can be, and you can never take this away from me ever again. Like never, this is I will never play Necromancer again unless there's something really really good. But other than that, yeah. So why did you put? Why did they put a Malignant Heart with resistances in the game, if they know resistances need to be fundamentally reworked? Like, because they won't even be there for season 2, right? And why did they make all resistances a rollable stat for all classes for shields if you know it's bad? I want to know like what the thinking is there. Like, if I could just ask them, like, please expand on this question for the next 10 minutes. I'd like to know why. What was the thinking involved with this? How did we get here? I don't know.
Shadow Mun, sorry. Can campaign bosses be added to the pool of dungeon bosses that we encounter? I feel like campaign bosses are underutilized.
I think there could be more opportunities to fight some of those campaign bosses in the future. I can't comment further on exactly how that will look, but I agree with that sentiment.
Great.
Okay.
Joe has often said this, so like we definitely want to make sure we find the right ways to bring act bosses in. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
This is actually a question. Party Cannon 30. Hi there, guys. Can you? Thanks for the information. My question is about crashes on PlayStation 5. Is that a known issue from the team about PC performance bugs? Let's see if they can. I don't want to butcher that. Okay. Do you guys plan on introducing more craft / modify gear? Currently, only gold has value, and only one stack can be rolled.
More ways to craft and modify gear.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. Yes. We do want to add more more options for players to be able to kind of modify the items they're getting. What we have really in the preseason and now the season 1 state is still very like a baseline experience in terms of item modification.
I wouldn't have I expected this. And I think that this is something, by the way, I completely support them starting with just one reroll at the beginning and then scaling this up over time. Harvest and Path of Exile didn't come until years after the release of the game. It's important that they do it right. I'm totally understanding of this being a thing that they do over time. And I think that's a smart thing to do.
We are looking at more opportunities in the future to allow players to do more with their items. So yeah, that is a plan for the future.
The Almighty Striker says, why does the Necrominions why do they take ability slots? It could be easily a different button. How many of Necrominion builds have beat Uber Lilith? Lots of questions about, is there...
Great question, Adam. Great question. I'm actually really curious to know how many Necrominion builds have beaten Lilith. I'll be curious to see if they answer that part.
We already answered the drop rates for uniques and so forth. That was the second part of the question. But I guess the question mostly is about Necromancer minions and ability slots. Also, I saw other questions related to companions, whether they're Druid companions with wolves or Necromancer minions, if there's any changes or plans for those to actually potentially get a little bit more tweaked up.
Yeah, this is something we do care about. One of the things that...
Okay. I'm glad.
That sounded dismissive.
Yeah, we care about a lot of things, but go on.
I was just trying to get to another point, which is...
I can expect that you guys care about it. Rod is a necromancer. He runs the game. So I could have expected you guys care. That's why it's confusing why it's bad. I don't understand.
There's some really cool stuff in some of the Malignant Hearts that affects this, in terms of like kind of getting credit for additional abilities.
Yeah.
And we do care a lot about the number of the sort of like ratio
like
of ability to number of slots that it takes up, and making that as optimal as possible.
Yeah, that's right. We want to make sure that if you're going to play a Necromancer and you're going to summon skeletons, that you are going to be. I mean, that takes up that's the weight of an ability. Like it's the same as having an active. You need to like playing with it. It's going to take a little bit of space in your bar. You don't get that in addition to a bunch of other things. If you don't want to have skeletons on your bar right now, the idea you'd be sacrifice a lot of those skills in order to give you.
It's not about skeletons. It's about the fact that there's skeletons and golem. If it was only skeletons, I think it'd be fine. But like having to use 2 different trees or 2 different slots for skeleton and golem, I think that's never. It's too much.
Give you that extra space. And in terms of the viability of like minion builds at various parts of the game, there are some builds that are able to like get pretty deep into content, obviously, but I think there's still room for improvement in terms of like minion survivability.
Okay, so 0 minion builds have killed Uber Lilith. All right. That's about as much as I had expected.
And other conversations along those lines, that is something that's still happening. And then there was the other conversation, the question about Druid companions, right?
Yeah, kind of similar to
let's not talk about these necro-minions, all right, guys?
Necromancer minions and
let's move on.
Like, can that ever be a viable thing?
Yeah, I think possibly. We see players. Actually, there are a few players that run like literally all 3 companion skills and use that as part of the build that they'll go after for their druid.
Yeah, they're level 47. They've been playing since release.
And I think that there's likely room here to do more with companion skills. Whether it rises to the full level of like a complete like spec, I think is going to be interesting. But I know that there's people on the team that are very excited about trying to explore more of this side of the druid over time. But we don't have as many. There aren't as many interconnecting points for the way that you interact with your companions right now, and the way that like the skeleton army does for the necromancer, in terms of ways that you modify them and do more with them. So I think there's some groundwork we need to do to like provide a lot more options there, but something that the team's interested in. Yeah.
I'm going to do one last question here, which is, will there be better loot tables for like treasure goblins, any alternate goblin types specifically for those?
Yeah.
Here's my hot take. I think that treasure goblins should always drop a legendary, and I think that butchers should always drop a unique.
I think we loved how many, D3 has like all kinds of
goblins.
There's like 10 different kinds of goblins, or 14 maybe. It's been a little while.
And they're really cool. I liked it too. It was really fun.
Data.
People say hard disagree on goblin. Like, what do you think's gonna happen? Like, oh my god, people are getting too many legendaries. Oh my god, people are getting legendaries. What's gonna happen? How's it a problem? Like it.
In the editor.
It's too many legendaries. What are they gonna do?
We think that there's lots of room for there to be more fun goblin types in the future.
And in terms of the treasure goblins have a tendency to provide, we actually I had a conversation with the lead designer last week talking about this. We are making we are buffing like legendary drop chance, for example, from items that will appear from treasure
thank
goblins.
God.
We do want
There we
them to
go.
be,
Great.
to feel a little bit more exciting when the moment they drop.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, I know we talked about a lot today. I just want to recap some stuff that we had mentioned today. Obviously, we've been hearing a lot of feedback regarding the patch, and you know we're telling you guys now that we completely hear you loud and clear. We don't plan on doing patches like this ever again, where we're not going to be essentially removing the fun and the player power from players drastically like this.
Yeah.
And if we ever do that,
All right. I mean, we clipped it. All right. All right, guys.
for any type of class, like a build or whatnot, we'll make sure that there's always some really good alternatives for players to actually be able to try out a different build that will also be boosted way back up to kind of help out and give other options for players to actually kind of jump into. And, you know, we will ourselves do a better job of course, communicating back to the community. Again, what we're saying now is that we will be getting patch notes in front of the community way earlier in advance, whether through a campfire chat or through like a blog of some sort or any type of communication, so that you guys can get a better chance at looking at patch notes beforehand, seeing any type of changes that might be coming down beforehand, because I think communication was key here. I think you guys not seeing what we were planning on doing and us kind of giving that vision really affected a lot of the response from you guys. And
he's very right. I mean, it's a matter of communication. I think that if this patch was communicated in a better way, it probably wouldn't have received as much of negative attention.
I think if we just provided that over to everyone and gave a little bit more of a heads up, I think it would have helped a whole lot there. From that specific situation.
Well, also keeping in mind. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, I think that's absolutely one part of it, and you were talking about it in a more full way. But I want to really make sure I hit on like one of the really great points of feedback that we've been seeing is like, why can you nerf things today and then buff things far in the future, right? And so what?
Yeah, it's a good one. Yeah, I was wondering. That's a really good one. Yeah, let's. Yeah, that's exactly right. Okay, let's find out why. Tell us why this is.
What we're saying is not only is there a change to communication, but we're also going to pair changes like that together, so that we don't have exactly the situation that players have called out as
okay, so you're not going to do it anymore. Okay.
Unfair.
Yep. Most definitely. And of course, with 111 coming really soon, we are committing to another campfire chat next week, next Friday.
Oh, fuck. Oh, God. There's going to be another one after this? Oh, shit. Uh-oh.
Probably the same time. We'll confirm. More than likely, it'll be 11 a.m. next Friday. We'll end up posting about the details over the next week, so that just as a reminder to the community. And there, we'll actually go through all the changes that we just talked about here into greater detail.
All right. Let me look at a few other ones.
Want to, obviously acknowledge everyone's feedback in regards.
We saw that one.
It's not the greatest play experience for players out there. We do want to explain why we ended up doing it within the.
Okay, we saw this.
From the ground up, we kind of made the decision to say it is okay if we want players to find these, but we don't want them to expect to find these.
Oh, he's talking about Uber Uniques. I want to hear this.
From the grounds,
good to waste resources on them in the future. So I don't think it's a good waste of.
We are making a specific content type that goes alongside that you're judging yourself against, and we're looking for season 3 for that.
Question from you, stupid walrus, is Uber Uniques. What's the future? They mathematically don't exist, so I don't think it's a good waste of resources of them anymore.
Sorry, I was really distracted by the walrus.
Okay.
Can you read the question again?
Uber uniques.
Oh, right.
What's the future? They mathematically don't exist. So I don't think it's good to waste resources on them in the future.
Yeah, that's a good question.
Yeah.
And so, Uber uniques are designed in such a way that they are a huge spike of power, and we're receiving feedback, and we understand the feedback on some of them, but they represent a huge spike of power, and as such are not expected to be part of builds necessarily. One of our goals underlying is
why not just make them rewards from like pinnacle content, and that way it won't matter. It's like Warglaives are overpowered in WoW, in like Black Temple. They're just like better than everything. And so like, but you can't get them until you beat everything, so it doesn't really matter if they're broken, like Shadowmourne. Well, actually Shadowmourn's not a good example. I think Warglaives are the best example, like Atiesh,
We don't want players to feel that one of these are mandatory, that you must find in an effort to bring your build online. From the ground up, we kind of made the decision to say it is okay if we want players to find these, but we don't want them to expect.
Well, if you want players to find them, you mean players is like plural. Like whenever you say players, you mean two people, right? Like the one guy in Korea and then the other guy.
To find these, which is a difficult place to balance in terms of drop rates when you're thinking about these. Now, right now, I believe that they are exceedingly rare, and we do want them to feel very, very rare. But I suspect that as we start moving into future seasons, we do want to find more ways for more opportunities for players to get chances at these. And I imagine we'll be able to talk about that soon. But I would suggest
it's 1 in 1 million rather than 1 in 5 million.
That like the current drop rates are probably not going to be the drop rates forever. We'll probably make those a little bit more common, a little more likely to be found as time goes on.
I don't really understand why they don't just make them rewards for pinnacle content. It doesn't really make sense to me. So, like, if the concern is that you're worried that people will feel like they need these to make their build work, well, why not just make them the reward for beating the hardest content in the game? Therefore, there would be no further you'd need to go with your build. Like, yeah, solo pinnacle content. Because they're account bound anyway, so it's not like somebody can just like do the runs over and over and trade them to people. And you could still make it super rare for casuals, but you could have it like, I mean, why not just have it drop from two different places? Like from one place it's like a super rare drop, another place it's not. Like for example, like the in Firelands, the Pureblood Firehawk, it's like the Phoenix mount, or like it's the red Firehawk, the yellow Firehawk from Firelands. It drops from normal mode Ragnaros at 1%, but it drops from heroic mode Ragnaros at 100%. Why can't you do that? Why? I don't understand why. Like, plus making them rewards kills their value? You think that, so you're saying that people being able to, like, what value does that item have now? The items don't have any value because there's no actual value attached to them. There's no value.
A big topic that I'm seeing just pop up in chat and so forth. A lot of comments about crowd control. If there's any plans or ways that we're looking at addressing crowd control here in the future.
Yeah. As I mentioned earlier in the stream, or well, I think we both talked about it. We think that when you have high density of monsters on screen and you have a lot of elites, the crowd control, the tools that you have for crowd control are not, need to be better, basically.
How are you supposed to see if you're frozen? You can't move? Yeah, but you could not have to, like, for example, like you can get body blocked too. So how do you know if you're frozen or you're getting body blocked? Your skills lose color. Okay, so how do you know you're not feared or frozen? Like, how do you know which one it is? You turn blue? No, because you just said with all the density, you couldn't see what's happening on the screen. Frozen's pretty obvious. No, I don't agree with you. I think that with, like, for example, the really big goatmen with the big axes that do the jump attack, I think that they can completely obscure your vision from your character. And I think there's other NPCs that can do the same thing, especially if there's a lot of them. There should be debuffs. Why are we not? What is this? Like, what are we? What's going on? I feel like I'm taking crazy pills. Somebody says, I don't agree with you in terms of pinnacle power in Diablo 4 since the pinnacle content's not hard enough for the amount of value you get from these items. You don't think that Uber Lilith is hard enough? And what value would you get from an item? Like, what value add do you get from an item after you've already beaten the hardest content? Where is that? Where does that value come from? What, so you do it again? It doesn't even make sense. You can't even trade it. Can't people carry others? Want Uber Lilith done? Yeah, you'd have to make it solo. The problem, your character can get chain CC'd for 5 seconds. Adding tools to deal with it won't make it feel better. It just needs to be toned down. Should be able to trade it? I know you shouldn't be able to trade it. Oh my god, I feel like I'm going insane. I feel like the CC stuff, the fucking the Uber Uniques. What is going on? Like, how is this happening?
And some of that is going to be adjustments to things that feel unfair, and some of that is going to be tool adjustments in terms of your tools. I think that we'll be able to, this is something that.
So, like, how's that a solution, though? It's like, so the solution is to just give people unstoppable all the time so the CC doesn't happen? Well, then why is it there in the first place? Like,
we'll be able to speak more to, in terms of specifics and how we're going to address that, but we agree it's a problem in the future. Yeah.
Question from I'm so bad. IK Rekote. I tried. I'm so bad with names. I'm sorry. When will loadouts be added?
Yeah, it's a feature that the UI team is very excited about, and something we've talked about a bit internally. We don't have a timeline for the idea of
that's fine. I don't care.
Loadouts just yet, but it is something that we're continuing to actively talk about.
Like, why?
And we have more information to share in terms of like
why can't we just, like, for example, like, you go to the different Paragon boards, right? The big board. Why can't you, like, right-click the bottom of the Paragon board and just unlink everything that's on that board? Like, reset the whole gate. Why? Because, like, in WoW you can do that. Like, in the WoW talent tree, like, if you unspec something, like, here, it unspecs everything.
Like, when something like this could potentially be added to Diablo 4, I'm sure that we'll talk about it.
Barag0 says, what is the time frame on 111? It doesn't seem very clear. Is it before the middle of the season? How long do I need to wait for Sorcerer and Barbs to have their changes and be playable? It is much sooner than mid-season. As I said, it's only like a couple weeks away, and by a couple weeks I mean like very, very soon. Like, if we're doing a stream on Friday, I would expect it within a couple days after the stream.
We have to provide some. If we say anything too specific today, production will choke us out. So we have to be very careful about the language we use. But yes, very soon.
Only because with patches themselves, of course, there are. We're on a lot of different platforms and everything, and of course those go through certification. If a certification gets pushed back or whatnot, then we obviously need to readjust schedules, so it's hard for us to actually put a specific timeline until that actually occurs. But very, very soon. BaldB79, are there any plans for some changes for experience between, say, level 75 to 100? This is actually something that we just commented on, but the journey feels a bit dull. There are several events, but only nightmare dungeons to provide challenge. World bosses, Helltides, and Whispers are a good idea, but just too easy.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, there's so we talked about, so I guess there's two real parts of this. Like, are we making changes to the XP progression for players while they're moving through, like, World Tier 4 in this case? And the answer is yes. We are going to be looking at making changes to that, and we'll talk more about that soon. Mm-hmm. And then, secondly, do we feel that there are the right number of, like, milestones for players to engage with? Enough enough goals to kind of like consume while you're also just leveling up, and enough content to kind of do. And
I felt good leveling to 100. After they made the Nightmare Dungeon changes, I felt very good and motivated to level to 100. I didn't mind it.
And as you're leveling up in these role tiers, and I think that the
Personally.
answer is no. That we know that there's more things that we need to add to the game, particularly for World Tier 4. But really, just once you get into World Tier 3 and 4, just want to find more opportunities and more content and new things for players to do as they're leveling up through those spaces. And we do have plans for those things, and we do have thoughts on stuff we want to add in Season 2 in particular, and some things we're looking to continue to talk about moving forward.
Yeah.
But yeah, we recognize that there's more we would like to add to that journey to kind of create more variety and more moments of challenge as well while you're progressing. And not just at 100, but all along the way.
Podoc24 says, what are your plans to adjust loot drops? This I'm going to add on to his question after I read it. It feels very frustrating to grind for days without ever seeing anything close to an upgrade or finding the right aspect. Even worse, when you finally do it and it's a terrible roll. Slightly, I'm also going to modify that and mention target farming, which has also been a topic within the community. I'm not sure if you guys want to have any plans and so forth for that.
So I think there's a couple.
ARPGs do not create ARPGs. Like, it's not even true. I understand that you think it's an ARPG. I can't. So because of this imaginary label that you decided to attach to this video game, that somehow hand waves a bad player experience. It's just such a brain dead way of looking at things. I feel like I've just been beaten up. I just got done being beaten up. Expand the genre. Also, like in PoE, you don't have that happen. Like, that's not even true. The main most successful like ARPG right now is Path of Exile by a massive margin. Maybe Diablo 4 has more players, but I'd say PoE is the most robust and established game. You can buy things, so you don't have to farm for anything. So it's a completely different paradigm. And you have like 10 different ways of like changing stats on gear. It's not even true based on your own foundation. Like, fuck, bro. Like, I'm just so sick of this shit. Like, I just can't. I'm just gonna watch the Rex video. Like, I just can't. This is the stash tab. Okay, I've got to do this. This is gonna be like self-harm watching this, but we're gonna do it. Here we go.
In 111 helps us increase the number of, like, more monsters, more players, more stuff going on, and we know that the density in Nightmare Dungeons in particular needs to go up, and so we've been working on that to make sure that we can accomplish that. So density in Helltide will go up, not uniformly. Density in Nightmare Dungeons will go up uniformly, and these will be substantial increases.
Yep. Which I know players have been talking about constantly, wanting additional density on those.
Rightly so.
And a big topic right now is inventory concerns. We've heard from players. I know we've talked about gems and so forth actually becoming materials in Season 2, which to help out with some inventory concerns specifically. I know you guys have information, at least in regards to stash, and what might be coming in 111.
Yes. So certainly the gem change is still coming in Season 2, like you said. But we need more stash help now, right? And so in 111, we're going to be adding an additional stash tab for players so they can store more aspects, more Malignant Hearts.
Yeah, this has been like an ongoing conversation every week inside the dev team of like, do we feel that we're ready to do this yet? Do we feel that we're ready to do this yet? Like the density conversation and the stash tab conversation, like
what are the pros and cons of the stash tab? Like, so what's the, like, theoretically, like, you have a conversation about the stash tab. Who's saying no? Why are they saying no? Like, What is this? Like, how is this even a conversation? It's a memory issue? Then how can PoE have 50 stash tabs and Diablo has 4? How does that happen?
The engineering team's been working really, really hard to be able to like make these adjustments possible for us. Like there's more that we're doing. You know, this is now a never-ending conversation of like what else can we do and what else can we be doing to try to improve the experience. But like we've definitely heard these two concerns, and we're just really happy to be able to bring them in as early as 1.1.1.
Yeah.
Okay. Still don't understand why I can't have a set of stash tabs for the character that I roll as well as shared stash tabs. Yeah, I think that's what they should do too. It's not a memory issue. We all know the fucking answer. It's a business decision. They want to be able to sell them later, but they realize they starve their audience too much at the start and will lose too many customers with the default number. Why are I don't like I feel bad because I always use PoE as an example. But like in PoE, whenever you get like black scythe fragments from Expedition, they don't go in your inventory. Whenever you get metamorphosis fragments or samples, they don't go in your inventory. They're just stored, and the fragments are stored like on your base character. It's not map based. It's stored in the Expedition vendors. So like why can't you do that? I just it's just the heist contract locker. That's actually such a great example. That's so smart. That is a perfect example of what I'm talking about. Why can't we have a heist contract locker for the Malignant Hearts? Why not? Why do the aspects that you put in your inventory, why do they take up 2 slots and not 1? Why are they so big? Why is the aspect window that you have on your character, why are there less slots for the aspect window? Why do you have to pay more money to transfer an ancient aspect or an ancestral aspect versus a normal one whenever it gives the same percentage increase? I don't understand. The quest tab is always empty and can be used. Yeah. Like, how many items do you guys have in your quest tab? Probably like 2 things. But you can't put anything in there. Why not just send gems and pickups directly to storage? Yeah, I mean, true. Why can't you search the stash? Yeah, true. Oh, fuck. Why are you talking so sad and slow? Because that's how I feel. I feel like there's so many decisions being made on this game that are just, I think that they sound good until you think about why they need to exist in the first place. Like, I'm glad that they're making these changes, but at the same time, whenever you really sit back and look at why does this happen? Why is this, why? What is this? That's what I don't really understand. When I just have gems and aspects stored at vendors? Yeah. Do you actually think you're gonna make 6 months before they start marketing stash tabs? Well, we're already 2 months out of the way, guys. I think I might make it. All right, let's go ahead and watch the Rax video. Then after that, let's go look at some other stuff, talk about some other stuff. Okay, this is his fucking opinion on it.
It was Joe Pipora, Joe Shelley, and Adam, lead community guy, game director, associate game director. And I thought that this campfire chat was dynamite. I thought it was godly. It's exactly what the game needed because the morale...
It is. I mean, it's good, but, like, I just don't know, like... It is what the game needed. He's right. It is what the game needed. But, so, like, if you have a factory that makes bicycles... and every single bicycle the factory makes, the wheels are messed up. they're bent. And the developers come out of the people that run the factory come out and they said, guys, we see this bicycle, we see that it's bent, gentlemen, and they fix it. They get the bend out and they fix the bicycle. Guys, it's fixed. But what happens when the next bicycle comes out? How is it, like, what about the factory that makes the bicycles that have the bends? Because this is what my concern is.
Is very low in the community. So without any particular order here, I took a page of notes of all the stuff that they talked about.
Mm-hmm.
Go over it here. Yeah, I thought it was godly, if I'm being honest. Okay, so it started off by them apologizing for the patch.
Yeah.
And they said they agree that after the patch, the game is just not fun. Okay, so the first thing about having a problem is admitting you have a problem, and that's exactly right. It's really not that fun.
But like, I mean, you guys see my point though? Is like, if you admit that it wasn't fun and it was like massively problematic, like how did you not know that before you pushed the patch? Well, I know, we all know how they didn't know that. It's because they didn't test it. Like they didn't test the patch. Like that's why you have to make massive changes like this. So then, like, and this is my concern, right? Is that, okay, well then, how's that going to stop? This is the bicycle analogy. It's the point that I was trying to make with it. Is that how's that going to stop the next patch from having the same problems? You see my point? Fixing one negative outcome of a system doesn't fill me with confidence because the system procedurally generates negative outcomes. So fixing one of them doesn't fix the problem, it just fixes the symptom.
Committed to never releasing a patch like this again. And then they went to explain what they meant by that. They said this patch was essentially massive nerfs trying to, set up the future of Diablo 4 without giving us any compensation currently. So they're not going to do that again. They said part of their internal processes are going to change. Because what their internal process was balance the game, but it didn't have any consideration for how it would feel for the players or the fun that the players would have.
True.
Which is why the game's not fun. They said that endgame Nightmare Dungeons, the difficulty, especially after all the nerfs, is way too hard. They said doing Nightmare Dungeon 100 is almost impossible for most builds, and that you have to play a very specific niche build in order to get it down, which is true. So they said currently what is a Nightmare Dungeon 70 will be the future Nightmare Dungeon 100. They also said that they're going to release new endgame content to really challenge people in a different way. So if anybody's saying, wow, Nightmare Dungeon 100 was the thing that I really like to push, they're going to bring in new endgame pinnacle content of some kind that's going to help you.
Lovely.
Or give you something to do.
Great.
They said that one of the fun things in ARPGs is getting a really powerful build and then going and destroying a ton of monsters.
Very true.
And they said, well, the most popular endgame activities currently, Helltide and Nightmare Dungeons, don't really have the kind of density for you to do that. So in some areas of Helltide, they're going to massively buff the density, and they're going to massively buff the density in Nightmare Dungeons.
Great. This is awesome. Great. But people have been asking for this ever since the first week of the game. The game's been out like over a month, 2 months.
And hopefully that will also fix the XP problem. They said they know sorcerers and
that, by the way, that is the one part of this that I do completely agree is a big Blizzard W, which is smart, is making the experience, like, you can nerf the experience a bit, but you have more mobs, so it compensates for it. So, like, you're killing twice as many mobs at, about the same relative time, let's say, and they give half as much experience, so, like, it averages out. But this is the problem with that. Like, I do still think there is a problem with it. Is it, so then what about people that don't do that content, right? Because, like, then the comparative difference between that content and all the other content is so much larger that it pigeonholes people into just doing that one thing.
Barbarians have been hit extremely hard by their patch notes. They're being worked on right now. And I think we're getting some updates in the 1.1 patch for Sorcerers at least. They're going to help Sorcerers and Barbarians come back up. They know that the patch really hit them both. They said that respecking is a problem in the game. Nobody wants to respec because it's too expensive. The cost is going.
People were saying that in the beta. People were saying this shit in the beta. Like, what are we doing? What are we doing?
Down 40%. They said because of their changes, they understand why the whole community thinks that they're trying to slow down the game. They're actually not trying to slow down the game. That is not one of their missions. They realize that the changes that they did slow down the game, so they're going to work on ways to improve it so it doesn't feel that way. That was not one of their goals. So, with that in mind, they're going to look for ways to make the leveling 50 to 100 faster, because it's just currently way too hard to get to 100. Finally, for the first time I've ever seen them publicly, they addressed crowd control. They said that getting crowd controlled all the time is not fun. And they said especially when they buff the density in Nightmare Dungeons, the crowd control is going to get even worse. Now, here's the thing that I'm not trying to hone in on exactly their wording, but what they said is they're going to improve our tools to deal with crowd control. That is not the solution that I would be looking for. I don't want more ways to break CC. I want you to bring CC down as a mechanic.
The problem is that the visuals are bad. So Blizzard has prioritized immersion over readability in Diablo. That's why you can have those, you remember whenever you kill something and then they spawn the red pool, but you can't see where the red pool is because it's being obscured by the grass? That's because they care more about the immersion and less about the readability. That's just what it is. Like, you compare that with Lost Ark or Final Fantasy, they care way more about readability than immersion, and it has a different system. So I think the problem is that you can't see what's CCing you because oftentimes you're not able to visually discern where your character is because it's being obscured by 17 other effects. It's hard to see where the different lines are, especially if the mobs are in front of your character. Like, so for theoretically, here's the game, and then here's your guy, right? And then we've got the red guys. Actually, they're kind of like the brown goat boys. That's the goat boy, right? I mean, I feel like that's... Right, so if you have this guy here... Oh, let's go ahead and do this too. Actually, let's make him a little bit... Yeah, there we go. Oh, that's looking really good. And everybody knows the mob that I'm talking about, right? Like, we all know who this is. So, if he's behind you, like, theoretically, right? Let's do two possible situations, right? So it's like this, and you're in front of him, or it's like this. Where did he go? You see the problem. Because you can't see where your character is. I don't understand this.
I don't want more ways to deal with unbearable CC. I think CC crowd control should be brought down. For example, in this patch, they did fix 2 bugs with Cold Enchanted. Cold Enchanted, I'll actually run it now as an affix. I play on hardcore. I can actually play it without dying. So, more of that. Bring the CC down. Bring the spiders rooting you down. The chain CCs down. I think that's a way better fix than getting more tools. They said they're gonna...
Also, like, 3 things that shouldn't happen. The boars shouldn't charge you in melee range, the fat boys shouldn't knock you back in melee range, and the spider explosion shouldn't interrupt your character movement. All 3 of these things are just fucking annoying and make melee combat obnoxious.
think about bringing loadouts into the game because everyone keeps asking for it. They're working on the leaderboards, but they're not coming till Season 3. People are not going to be happy with that timeline, but it is what it is.
Wait,
They said
what?
Everyone keeps asking for it. They're working on the leaderboards, but they're not coming till Season 3.
Oh, leaderboards. Who cares?
People are not going to be happy with that timeline, but it is what it is. They said they're going to look for ways to make Uber uniques more common and or more ways to get them, probably with those new pinnacle things that they're bringing. They also kind of alluded to, without saying it, like I'm putting words in their mouth, but they essentially alluded to like the Uber campaign bosses are coming. So maybe we're going to be fighting Uber Andariel and Uber Duriel soon, and whatever else the other campaign bosses were.
Yes, that would be awesome.
They said part of the problem from 50 to 100 is not just leveling. They said there's not enough milestones in World Tier 3 and World Tier 4. So they're going to be looking to put in a ton of more milestones. You can have fun and feel.
And that is a huge issue. Is that like after you kill Elias, like now there's the new malignant boss, but before that, after you kill Elias, the next big jump in like content is like Uber Lilith. It's too much. I'm not sure about that.
Like your character is reaching different power levels throughout the process, which goes in with they're going to improve the item progression. And another thing that they said is they understand that playing the game, you get an inventory full of yellows and you have to manually look through everything. And they say that's a huge problem. So they're considering.
Why not add? Okay, what are they going to say?
Bring two things. They're talking with the UI team about a much faster way to compare items, or they're looking straight up at implementing loot filters, which is the greatest thing that I've heard in a long time.
That's awesome.
They said they're working on a group finder. It is coming. They said they're going to look for ways to improve target farming if you're a druid and you need a Tempest Roar. They said that they recognize some monster types are doing way too much damage and one-shotting people. They also said that some of the Nightmare Dungeon affixes are killing way more people than others, like way disproportionately. So,
yeah, there's some of them that are just like insanely fucking hard and they'll one-shot you, like backstabbers, that thing that like slams down and explodes. There's a few more of them. Yeah, Death Pulse, yeah.
They have the data. They're going to fix it. They said that some ranged monsters do too much damage and some classes like sorcerers have too little defense to deal with it. They're looking at that and they're going to fix it. They said they're looking for a way, part of like the stash space that they addressed. They're going to give us another stash tab. And they said another thing is there's too many things in the game that are taking up too much space, like the caged hearts for the season.
Absolutely.
Like the fact that you have to extract 1 million legendary affixes and keep the legendaries to extract them. They said that that's not fun. One person from chat suggested that if you find a better power that you can upgrade it on the codex. So once you find a perfect disobedience power, maybe you could extract it into your codex and level up the codex. And they seem to like it. That's actually a pretty smart idea.
There's no way they're going to do that, by the way.
They said they're considering that and other options to fix the fact that you don't have 10,000 things in your stash. They said the memory leaks and the PC performance, like those things are always being addressed, but they actually found like 2 or 3 specific bugs that keep causing it that are going to be fixed. They said crafting will be enhanced in the future beyond just upgrading with gold, adding sockets, and just re-rolling one stat. They said that they're buffing goblins. They're going to drop better loot, and they love how D3 has multiple kinds of goblins.
Yeah, so having other treasure goblins is fun. It's just cool to see them and kill them. It's that simple.
Probably more goblins are coming. Next Friday, we're getting another campfire where they're going to tell us about 1.1.1, which is going to be released a few days after that campfire chat, which is going to address some of the stuff that they talked about. Again. They said there's going to be several more patches before Season 2. So that's a summary of what they talked about. And this is the first time, for the most part, this is the first time that I've seen them just straight up admit, we have a problem. This is what we did wrong. I'm sorry. there wasn't a whole lot of excuses, or I don't know what the right word is. There wasn't a whole lot of, well, you guys think this is bad, but really did you think about it this way? They didn't really try to twist it very much. They just straight up said, hey, we messed up majorly. I give them major credit for that. That is not an easy thing to do for a company or for a person or anybody to admit. And
it's good that they did that. It is. It's good. I'm glad they did that. I think we're halfway there. At this point, yes. But how did we get here? Why did it happen? You know what I mean?
You could tell, like, there were some questions that they asked about certain features. Like, they said, like, what about companion druid? And you could tell via their answers that it's not something that they're actually working on right now. They're like, oh, okay, we can look at companion druid, da-da-da-da. You could tell a lot of these things they actually have talked about, and they probably have fixes in the works to make it better. And I thought that the topics that they chose for once, like, I don't want to insult the past times, but really for once were really actually what everyone was complaining about. Like, they actually went to the heart of the problem.
I will agree with Rax on this. I think that they did address a lot of the problems. CC, stash space, Uber uniques, leveling sucks. That's true. They did do that.
And the questions that they took from chat, most of them were incredible. Like, actually the problems in the game, rather than Joe Schmo 69420 asks, when can I get more headdresses for my fat witch doctor druid? You know, it's like, nobody cares about those questions.
Yeah.
They actually asked the questions that matter. And answered them.
Block. Yep.
And so I think this campfire chat was a huge step in the right direction for the game. I give them major credit here.
I think it's a good step, and it is in the right direction, and I'm happy they did it. But I am reserving just completely being like Blizzard W. Like, this is definitely, like, I would view it as like kind of neutral at this point, because they did something that was very bad, and they made the game worse, and now they're scaling some of it back. I'm happy about this, definitely. But my concern remains that, how is this not going to be a problem in Season 2? How is this not going to be a problem whenever the next issue presents itself? Why are there these values that are being held? Like, why did they increase the... I guess, like, so... This is going to sound... It might sound like kind of a schizo thing to say, but this is something that I've always thought. I think that there are mining canary problems that become indicators of a much larger philosophical issue. And I want to give you 2 examples of those mining canary problems right now so you can see where I'm coming from. Number 1, it was whenever they nerfed the soar speed of the Drakthir in the beta as soon as the pre-patch for Dragonflight. There was no reason for them to have done that. Period. It was a completely pointless change. It made the game worse. It made Drakthir less fun. And it just sucked. And Blizzard never changed it. And now they did the obvious thing that everybody knew that they were going to do, is that they added dragon riding into the entire world. So now Drakthir's, their special ability has fundamentally or functionally no value. Like, everybody has like a cool racial ability, and the Drakthir racial ability is just a cosmetic piece of shit, where like other classes have things that are way cooler. So whenever I saw them do that, and then one of their bits of reasoning was that people could get to old raids faster and farm transmog more quickly. Well, you couldn't even do that because male characters are like chainmail characters are the least represented class for transmog in the first place. So you wouldn't even be farming transmog on a Drakthir anyway. It doesn't even make sense. So it was a stupid decision. It was a stupid reasoning. It was stupid in general, right? And I think that changes like that indicate a broader philosophy that is disconnected from the player base. So I think that the teleporting out of a dungeon being 5 seconds and not 3, I view that as a mining canary issue. I do. I think it's a mining canary issue. And so long as decisions like that are being made in the game, I cannot have full confidence that the game will improve. That's really it. And I know it might sound like a schizo thing, and it doesn't really matter. Well, the mining canary doesn't matter. But, like, if you understand what a mining canary... Oh, fuck. I need to explain that, guys. What is mining canary? I'm so sorry. Mining canaries, people would go down in mines, and they would bring a canary with them, and if the canaries started acting up or, like, acting weird, it's because the canaries were able to sense different chemicals, like gases that would be toxic to humans, before humans could detect that it was happening. So the mining canary would be, like, the first indication that there was something that was negative or toxic before humans were able to detect it themselves. They would die. Well, yeah, sometimes they would die, too. But they would either act up or they would die. But both ways are bad, right? And so that way people knew, oh wait, oh there's something worse down there. Let's not go down there. Let's turn back now. So it's like it wasn't poisonous to the people, but if they continued, it would be. And I think that's kind of the situation that we're in. So will you stop playing? Not yet. No, I mean I'm still enjoying the game. Like for me, playing a video game is very simple. If I'm enjoying it, then I play it. Whenever I stop enjoying it, I stop playing it. Like for Diablo 4, before, I stopped playing it because I did everything that I wanted to do and I was tired and that was it. And so I'll keep playing it until I get to that point in the season. And I'll maybe do that for maybe another season, maybe not. And then I'll move on until something crazy happens that catches my interest again. That's about it.